All right, it's time for an episode of Go Talk. Today I have Haylee, Hajin Lee. How are you?
Hi, I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You are one of the more famous Go streamers that we have, right?
Well, we don't have enough ghost streamers.
That's
That's
true,
why.
yeah. But you're one of the few professionals that do it, and I think a lot of people know it and really enjoy a lot of your videos. You also do a lot of stuff with the Korean Go Association.
Yes.
Is it KABA?
Yes, we have two Go organizations in Korea. One is KBA,
Uh-huh.
Korea Baduk Association, and
Mm-hmm.
they organize professional tournaments. And we also have Korea Amateur Baduk Association, KABA,
Oh.
and they organize amateur tournaments.
Oh, okay, cool. And then I think you're also a professional Go player. You're what, 3 Dan Pro?
Yes, Dridan Pro. And I'm also working, actually, KBA or KABA, I cooperate with them,
Uh-huh.
but I'm working for the International Go Federation.
Oh, so busy. So many Go activities. Um, let's start. Let's
Yes,
start with the biggest thing that everybody has been talking about for the last three or 4 weeks,
of course.
which is
Yes,
AlphaGo,
of
Google,
course.
computers, and professionals.
Yes.
So, how did you feel when you first heard about this?
I was very shocked. So, when I first heard that there was this computer AI that wanted to challenge the professional, like top professional player on an even game, I was like, that doesn't make any sense because the strongest Go AI still needs about four handicap stones or five, right?
Yeah.
So I was very shocked and I couldn't believe it.
Hmm.
But, you know, the person who was talking about it was obviously serious. So,
And
yes,
and then you saw the game, and that must have been really surprising just to see it play as well as it did.
right. It made me realize that it was not a joke.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
I'm still at the point where when I see games that are pro, I just say they must be strong. It's
yes.
still very hard for me to understand, but when you saw it, you could very easily quickly see how strong it was then.
No, actually, I still couldn't tell how strong it was. So, what I felt was that it was strong and then it won all five games against Fan Hui.
Hmm.
So, very strong. But then, still, Fan Hui is not at the level of Lee Sedol.
Hmm.
So, in like human games, when you see their game records, you can estimate their level, like no
Oh.
matter they lost or won.
Hmm.
But in this case, because the computer wasn't trying to play its best, it was only trying to win. So I all I could feel was that it was stronger than Fan Hui. But whether it was at the Lisedo level or not, I couldn't tell.
So what do you mean by the difference between trying your best and trying to win? Is there because that it feels like
Yes,
you would do the same thing.
right, right. So this is AlphaGo.
Hmm.
For example, there was a game that AlphaGo could win by, like, for example, 15 points,
Hmm.
but it wouldn't win by 15 points, but rather like 5 points.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember I talked with I think Matthew Burrell talked
Mm,
about this, and I think some other people. Sometimes it's not. You don't want to just win. You want to win with the the best chance of winning, right? Is that
right,
sort of the
right.
same idea?
Yes, and then th- I, I felt that the computer played very safe when it thinks it's winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's definitely, yeah, I think even many years ago when I saw other people, high dons, play
Hmm.
uh, computers, they always said the same. Oh, the AI is playing safe mode. It thinks it's safe, so
Yes,
it doesn't
yes,
think, oh, I need to keep, trying to win. So,
right, right.
So that's pretty interesting. How did when that news came out, was it like where you were working in the Go Federation? Like were people just all talking about it and looking at the game?
Oh yes. Actually, we knew about it a little earlier than other people
Oh wow.
because when Google DeepMind wanted to challenge Lee Sedol, they first contacted British Go Association to organize a game against Van Hui.
Hmm.
And then when they won, they decided that they needed the next level challenge.
Yeah.
And the British Go Association contacted us, the International Go Federation.
Oh, okay.
So that was before they announced AlphaGo.
Oh, they wanted to make sure.
Right. So they wanted to organize at least some big frame match before they like announce that we are going to play Lee Sedol sometime.
And this is a big deal. I mean, it's what, 5 matches or how many?
Yes, there will be 5 matches.
Cool. And I am very excited.
Me too. I can't wait to see the games.
It's interesting because I feel it. I remember the one thing I would always tell people was like computers don't understand, like they can't play at a pro level, and then so it suddenly happened. I was like,
yes.
It was almost like, huh. It's here. I thought I could like wait a little bit longer and say, but I think it's really nice because right now it's such a big deal that so many people are hearing about it, and they can get really interested in it. So it's good and bad for me.
Yes. Right.
The thing about it that I was always interested in, and this sort of has to do with computers, not really. I remember reading this one thing. They said they wrote programs that would study like famous composers, like let's say Mozart or Beethoven. And then they said, okay, this is how Mozart and Beethoven plays. And then we can make a song that sounds like Mozart or Beethoven. And it feels, to me, that this is sort of the same thing. It sees how pros play and thinks, oh, okay, this is how a pro plays. The question I have, and eventually if I get someone who does computers, is how much of Go or Baduk do you think is creative? And the reason I ask that is because every time I get a game reviewed or I watch Myungwon review a game or anyone review a game, it's the right move. There's never like an inventive move or crazy move. How much do you think of Go when you play is creative?
That's a very interesting question. And I would say there is big spectrum of creativeness in your playing style. So when we talk about professional players' styles, we sometimes say that like certain players' moves are more predictable than other players. For example, Lee Sedol 9-dance moves are very unpredictable. I think his moves are creative. And then, like so this is the difference. If the professional players were given like 3 or 4 options, then I think they may be like reaching the same conclusions most of the times. But sometimes we just don't think about certain moves because when we read for next moves, I think our mind like pre-select certain candidates. But like Lee Sedol 9-dan would sometimes play moves that we've never thought as a candidate.
Oh, I see.
So I think that is the creative element.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's the question ends up being, will AlphaGo be able to play something new that we've never seen, or will it always play something that we're like, oh, okay, of course, but just saying, oh, maybe there's this one move we just never thought of that's like over here.
Right, yes.
And then you see it, oh.
Right. Like when you see it, you have a feeling, oh, that is such a great move, or That's ridiculous.
So you still feel that Go can be very creative. Like
Yes,
it's never always just this is the right move. Like
right,
for this game, for this board, there's only one move. There's still creativity in how you see it.
right. And also, after someone plays that move, sometimes that looks like obvious,
Mm,
or you would say, "Oh, that of course that was the right move."
mm,
So, like looking back, it becomes one of the right moves.
mm.
But if you didn't see that move, you wouldn't like think about it.
I see. So yeah, that's good. I think maybe that's a good thing to think about, even regardless of how this happens. I think because I've always wondered, because Go keeps changing. We've had so many different things I've seen, and now Go right now, so many pros say it's very much reading. But I always wonder if we're gonna see something like Takamiya with a Cosmic Go, or how
Hmm.
often you can see a style like that where just someone does this crazy moyo or something, or has something that no one else has ever thought for like creativity. And that's why I'm always curious about creativity in Go, and maybe how computers might approach it. Do you
Yes.
do you think there's maybe some sort of style out there that it still has can show up that we haven't seen before?
Yes, I think there are possibilities
Hmm.
for that. And we do see the styles. They are not cosmic styles like Takemiya,
Hmm.
but we do see Koje style, which is like very fast
Hmm.
and like accurate reading or based
Hmm.
moves. And these Sedol Naidan being very unpredictable and like brilliant.
Right.
But we see those styles only when certain players rise to the top.
Oh, okay.
And then some players' style is like very non-descriptive. But
But
that
it's
is
there.
their styles, yes.
Interesting.
But the other day I was talking with Lisedol, and he told me that the new players, the new generations of players, they have no styles, and he said that was a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, because it seems so much on fighting and reading. It feels it every time I hear it. I think I talked to William Gangxiang about this, and he said, yeah, a lot
Yes.
of it now is just reading, and
Mm.
it. I wish I could see something where like a Takamiya style, where it's like, what is this guy doing? It's like something only Takamiya can do.
That's true, yes.
So that's cool. So let's talk about. Actually, let's talk a little bit about Lee Sedol. So you see him a lot?
One, no, not a lot. I wouldn't say a lot. I met him several times after DeepMind approached
Mm,
for the match.
yeah.
So I met him, Lee Sedol, to ask him if he would be interested in playing a computer.
Hmm.
And then after he said yes, I met him a few more times to discuss some details.
Oh, cool, cool. Is he excited? Is he nervous? Is he like how does he feel about it? Or is it private?
So when I first when I first asked him about this match, I wasn't allowed to tell him who his opponent was.
Oh.
So at first I told him that there is a match and the sponsor would like to invite him. And then at first he said that he couldn't answer unless he knows the opponent. He said that it didn't matter how big the prize money was.
Hmm.
He had to know who the opponent was, and then if he doesn't want to play that opponent, he wouldn't play it.
Huh. I see.
Then, right, I don't know what his concern was, but I think he didn't want to, for example, let's say there is this billionaire who wants to
Right.
play an even game with this.
He wants a
Then-
teaching game.
I think he meant he wouldn't, yeah.
I see.
do such a thing. He
Right.
wanted to have a serious serious match,
Right.
like proper and legitimate.
Mm.
Only then he would play. That was kind of the feeling.
I see.
And then, like, he had to sign the NDA
Right.
because it was before the announcement, and then they were publishing their paper with Nature.
Yeah.
And Nature didn't want to have the announcement comes out before their like publication.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
So he signed an NDA,
Mm-hmm.
and then I told him that it was a computer, and then he was like, "What?"
So,
And then, like, at first he wasn't believing it.
right.
It's that, and then he knew a lot about it actually, about the latest computer Go.
Oh,
He
wow.
said that, oh, that only about like a couple of weeks ago I was talking with my sister, and then his sister is also a strong amateur player.
Mm-hmm.
With my sister, and then we said that it will take at least like 5 years.
Surprise.
Yeah, the strongest program was about 4 or 5 stones away.
Mm.
And then, like, about 2 or 3 months before the AlphaGo came out, there was this computer Go tournament in China. I think it was in November or October. And the winner was the computer program developed by a Korean guy. So there were a few big news articles about this Korean developer on a newspaper.
Right.
And then it was considered a really big achievement that this computer could play with 4 handicap stones against pro. So Lee Sedol wasn't believing it, but then I told him that it already won against Fan Hui, and then it is like even stronger now than before. And it won't be too weak for him to play. That's what I told him.
So, interesting. It's a very, I can't wait for it to happen. I know so many people want to see this, and we're all really excited about it. So thank you for getting it, handled. And then also, I'm sure after it's done, we can talk about it even more just to see, how everybody thinks. Interesting. Let's talk about Go or Baduk in Korea.
Yes.
Definitely, the first thing I'm curious about is because it's a lot newer than it is, let's say, in Japan or China. So how is it typically viewed in Korea?
So when you say newer, you mean our association, right?
Right.
The game itself is very old.
And I actually saw that there's even they did a certain opening where you started with the corners already taken.
Yes, of course. We had different game, right? You're right.
Yeah.
So this is a long story.
That's what we're here for. Did you bring some water? Maybe just drink just in case you get tired.
No, let me make it quick.
Okay.
So we had this we have to talk about this guy, our father of Korean Baduk.
Mm-hmm.
So his name was Cho Nam-chul, 9-dan professional, and he studied Go in Japan. And he was one of the first Korean people to study Go in Japan seriously. So when he was about 20, I don't remember exact age, he came back to Korea. And I think that was almost right after we had liberalization from Japan. Japanese colonial time. And at the time, the Korean people were playing the old form with like 17 stones, I think 17 or 14 stones on the board preset.
Yeah.
So that was Baduk in Korea, and everyone was playing it.
Oh wow.
Not okay, not
But
everyone,
but
widely played.
Right.
But mostly by the upper class people, the the common people were too busy, like farming and working,
Right.
so they didn't have much time for leisure activities. But the
Mm-hmm.
upper class scholars, they would have a lot of time to like do the music or arts or play Baduk. So it had been in Korea for like hundreds of years, or maybe thousands of years. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know for sure.
Right.
But it was always that preset game. So because there are so many stones on the board already, there are no openings and no josekis, but only reading and fighting.
Oh.
A lot of cutting.
Sounds exciting.
Yes, yes. So when Mr. To came back from Japan after becoming a pro in Japan, he thought he should promote the modern game, which starts on an empty board.
Oh, I see. Oh, no wonder
And
he's the father.
yes, and he also thought we needed an organization to like systematically promote the game. And he also wanted to have the professional system like Japan had. So he is the founder of Korea Baduk Association in 1945.
Right.
So yeah, I think that was the exact year that we had a liberalization from Japan.
Cool.
And last year in 2015, we had 70th anniversary of KDA. So we had a series of special events.
Oh, cool.
So when he first started, we had many audience, but we had nothing else. We didn't have any sponsor. We didn't have any money.
Oh, wow.
So he started like visiting some like influential people who like to play Go and then asked them to sponsor the association. And also he visited like each of the famous strong players in like different states.
Yeah.
And then he organized the first nationwide Go tournament. And I think there were about 11 such strong players, and he granted everyone professional status.
Right.
Without any like qualification. So the association started with about a dozen professional players from the beginning because they were already very strong.
Yeah.
And then he would go to like different like people to have a sponsor, and he would go to newspaper because that was the format in Japan. Newspaper companies would organize Go tournaments, and then they would put the game records on a newspaper. It's before the internet.
Right.
It was the only way people could see the top players' records with some commentary. And I heard those were so popular that many people would buy like whole newspaper only to see the small section of those game comments. Yes. And only to see the game results. So Mr. Joe would go to different newspaper companies, and then he would manage to have some tournaments. And then he would organize the first pro qualification tournament to select new pros. So that became the beginning of KDA.
So now is it just... So if you talk about it now, if I go to Korea and then I say, oh, I play Baduk, well, most people know what it is.
Yes, my feeling is that like more than 9 people out of 10 would know.
Oh,
but
wow.
I may be wrong, but that's how I feel.
But it's also, I think it's a pretty big deal because I think now that you have so many people that are on such a huge world stage, there's a sense of pride with it too, right? That, oh, we have Sedol and we have I don't know enough their names, but sorry, but we have so many strong people that, you know, when they start being able to be recognized, people want to know about that, which is great.
Yes, it's great, and then we are very proud, but the people who know what Baduk is, they don't necessarily know that we are one of the strongest countries.
Oh, I see.
Like they would know because they probably had seen it somewhere. But then they might not know much about it.
I see. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I think then this Google thing must be amazing then, because now they know
Yes.
that we have the world's strongest computer program is playing what they say is the world's strongest Go player or Baduk player, and they're like, wait, we
Yes.
had the world's strongest Baduk
Yes.
player
Yes.
since when?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's cool.
Yes. I think we are all very proud of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
interesting about how the old style of playing Baduk involved a lot of fighting, and then for a while it was really well known that Koreans would be really strong fighters, so maybe it influenced each other.
Right, right. Oh, by the way, when Chonam started KBA,
Hmm.
the Korean pros were about 2 stones weaker than Japanese pros.
Oh, okay. So
So
they were
we
still
weren't,
they weren't that far away then.
right, right. They weren't that far away, but we were not always strong like today.
Oh,
We, yes, we came up.
that's that's very interesting. The other thing about Go and or we'll call it Baduk. I'll just
Yes.
but Baduk in Korea is that I'm curious about is how people who already know what it is, what are they most interested about? I ask this because in America, the most thing you see with Americans or even at the Go Congress, people want to learn. Everything
Right.
that we see, it's always about learning.
Yes.
You go to China, you go to
Mm,
Japan. It's sometimes it's less about learning and just enjoying and watching the game and maybe the review. It's
mm,
okay if we don't understand it, and it's okay if we don't learn anything from it, because I think maybe the average player who actually still plays Weiqi uh,
mm.
in China is a lot stronger than maybe the average player in America. How do people usually approach Baduk in Korea? Are they thinking about it and
Right.
oh I've got to get better, or are they just like oh let's
Yes.
enjoy like a
Mm.
professional game and just see what they're doing?
So we, of course, we have all types of players.
Right.
Some of them would want to get stronger, and some of them would want to just enjoy. But in general terms, I would say more people like to enjoy the game
Mm.
than like get stronger. Of course, if we ask them, they would say, "Yes, I want to become stronger," but that is their answer, and that doesn't mean that they put the necessary efforts into
That
becoming
sounds like me.
stronger.
I see.
Right, because in order to get stronger, you need to study, but studying is not as fun as playing.
Right. Yeah.
So I would say most amateur players would like to play,
Mm.
play fast games,
Right.
not. And when you want to get stronger by playing, you should play long games, like put a lot of thinking into it,
Right.
and then review the game afterwards. But like most Korean amateur players, my feeling is that they like to play fast games and they don't necessarily review afterwards.
Right.
But they still have fun, and I think that's still good.
Yeah, I mean, the more people that enjoy Go is always a good
Right.
thing. It must be interesting for you to see so many people enjoying Go or Baduk or whatever, just seeing how it's changed. So like the interesting thing also, famous Nandan pro Cho Hae-yeon.
Yes.
Yeah, I know many years ago. I don't want to say many years ago, but a few years ago, I
Yes.
think it was she did come to America for I think it was in Oregon, Portland, Oregon,
Yes, I
and
do. Yes.
I remember that was also the year Takamiya was there.
Mm,
But I remember she ran a blog for a little while and she talked about it when she came
right.
back, and she said, you know, she went to America and she was surprised like, oh, all these people like play Go, but they all talk about it in Japanese, and all the people that they know and they care about is in
Yes.
Japanese.
Mm,
And now I think even when
yes.
we go to when I go to Go Congress, there's a
Mm,
lot. Well, the one thing she said about that was I
mm.
want to do more to make Korea known in the world
Ah,
about
yes.
Go. And
Yes.
she
Yes.
was, because she was like, everybody talk to there, they know all these famous Japanese players and maybe some Chinese players,
Yes.
but they don't know Korean players. I want to
Ah,
make it more well known. And then
Yes.
now I think when we go to Go Congress, there's a
Yeah.
lot of Korean influence. I mean, Myungwon shows
Mm.
up, you show up,
Yeah.
so many people show up.
Right. Right.
So the thing I'm curious about is, first of all, how much has changed, but also, I mean, what is Korea and also you doing to like improve and promote Go right now?
Right. Right. So we. So first we're I don't know where to start. So let me start with the Kaba project.
Okay.
So Kaba receives Kaba is affiliated organization to the Korean Olympic Committee,
Mm.
which is the Korean Sports Authority.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and and because Baduk is also recognized as a sport, they receive a lot of government subsidy to
Oh.
like improve and promote. And like one part of subsidy comes with the tag that says like promoting Go overseas.
Oh, wow. That's really surprising.
Is that the first time you hear about it?
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, if you think about AGA is mostly volunteers. I think I don't know about China or Japan, but that's so surprising that, and it's
Yes.
awesome that the government says, make
Yes,
Baduk
make
really
Go
well known.
popular. Yes, make Baduk popular outside Asia
Mm.
because we are proud of our strong players and our culture, right?
Right.
So with this government subsidy, Kaba does many things. So one thing is to send our players abroad for like long term and short term. Long term would be 1 year or more, and short term would be for one event like Go Congress.
Oh, I see.
So like the long term subsidy would go to Myeongwan or Evan, and there are players in Europe and in Australia.
Oh, Evan's here because of
Right.
Kaba. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, it's not enough subsidy for make living, but it helps.
He can buy
It-
maybe
it-
some
yeah.
food.
he wouldn't starve to death.
That's good. That's good.
I'm not sure he will be able to pay the rent, but there is some subsidy. So
That's cool.
yes, you should pay him for lessons.
I already I have a teacher, but I'll think
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
I was joking. But so that's one part.
Mm.
The other part is to send Go equipment to developing countries. We
Oh, wow.
send the Go boards and Go stones or the magnetic Go boards to like South Africa or Mexico or Indonesia, like those like small Go associations. That's another part.
Yeah.
And another some part of the money goes to our program that trains young players in summer. It was the first time we had it last year. They invited 13 young players, like a few from Europe, a few from America, a few from like Southeast Asia. And then they studied Go for 3 months in Korea. And that was 100% funded by Kaba from airfare, accommodations, and tuitions. And also they got to do a lot of like cultural programs, which was like sort of small trips to different parts of Korea. So I'm sure
wow.
they had a great time.
That's really nice. I had no idea. This is so cool. So basically, one day, maybe the way this goes, everyone won't be talking about how they know how to play Go. They'll just say, "Oh, I know how to play Baduk" instead.
That would be awesome. But the ultimate goal is not to change Go to Baduk. I think we just want to promote this game altogether.
Yeah, definitely. It is interesting because I know when you talk, because I'm Chinese, and then when I talk to other Chinese players about it, we have our own terms, and then Japanese have their own terms, and it's the same thing, but sometimes you talk about it because like Joseki in Japanese, 定式 in Chinese, and then in Korean it's Cheongseok.
Yes, perfect.
And so it's every time they say, "Oh, what's this?" and I was like, "I don't know." Like, how do we all say it? So we all have to use the Japanese. And then so it's interesting, but that is so cool.
Right.
That's awesome. Let's talk about pro being a pro now. You're a pro.
Mm.
I'm not a pro. You see a lot of pros. I know when I talked to Stephanie about how pro life was in China, it was really surprising because I don't want to say that it's harsh, but
Mm.
it's you have to really be good to uh, keep being a pro. Otherwise, you sort of say, okay, I'm gonna be a teacher. I'll help
Yeah.
promote Go. What's the pro life like in Korea?
So actually, the pro life changed a lot in the last 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So when I just became pro, which was like 12 years ago,
Right.
in 2004,
Mm.
the at the time pro life was a lot of fun.
Mm.
So at the time, if you're a pro, you would make like a decent amount of money even if your performance is not at the top level.
Mm.
Because even the preliminary round, you would get paid for playing.
I see.
So you didn't have to be like one of the top players to make living. So most pros had comfortable life,
Mm.
and then we had a lot of activities together. But in the last 5 years, things have changed a lot,
Right.
and now most professional tournaments doesn't pay for the preliminary round,
I
only for
see.
the main round.
Mm-hmm.
So that means if you don't make to the main round, you have no income from that particular tournament.
Right.
So nowadays, unless you're in the like top 50 or so, you don't make much money. And because of that, the competition became more intense. And also the before, like many professional players could just study and then hang out and have fun.
Mm.
But now, like they have to make the decision sooner whether they are going to be teaching or like studying for
Oh,
tournaments.
I see. So how many? You said like the top 50 maybe can live a comfortable living. How many active professionals are there in Korea? Would you say like 100, 200,
Right.
500, 1,000?
In total, we have 300 pros,
Oh, okay.
but I would say about half of them are still like playing in tournaments.
Oh, okay. So that's pretty good. So that definitely everyone who's playing is very hungry and very serious about it.
Like, yeah, they are making like a little less than they would be like satisfied, I
I see.
guess.
But I mean, it must be nice to still have this as your living, to something you really enjoy and you're interested in, to be able to play it and be able to do this and, teach or interact with people that are really interested with it. So it must be really
Yes.
nice.
Right, right. But I think you have to have this certain personality. So in my case, uh, I I couldn't stand the fact that Go was the only thing in my life. So that's
Uh,
why I went to university. I studied different things, and then I would travel.
mm,
And now I'm working at the International Go Federation
I
rather
see.
than playing in tournaments. But like some players, Go is the only passion they have, and like it doesn't matter where they are, whether they are at the training team or they're on vacation, they always want to be playing and solving problems, looking at other game records because that's the only thing they enjoy.
Right.
I think this type of players really thrive in tournaments and become like top players.
Interesting. And you would say even someone like Lee Sedol is like this, that everything they like and everything.
Yes.
That's interesting. So that's an interesting thing to talk about. Like a pro's attitude towards playing and learning is always just to get better. I mean, you would know this. Like, what are your feelings during the game? Like, is it always just do you get frustrated? Do you get angry? Or are you always just looking at it and just looking at it and just thinking, okay, I need to win. I need to win, and what can I do?
You go through different stages.
Hmm.
Um, when I was at the Insei 연구생,
Mm-hmm.
like right before becoming pro,
Mm.
I think that is probably the most stressful stage that people go through before becoming pro, because if you don't become pro, you don't get much out of your experience, your 10 years experience studying
Yeah.
Go seriously.
And
Because
especially how
mm,
hard the protest is. The pro like how many people, how many guys and how many girls get selected every year? Do you know?
Ye-
Is it?
yes, I do.
Oh, okay. I I don't
Uh,
know.
about 12 guys and 2 girls
Oh, okay.
each year become pro.
Uh,
But when I became pro, there were about 6 guys and 2 girls.
I see.
But now we are selecting more boys.
I see. Yeah, and it's interesting because so many. I think you talk to a lot of professional, or when
Mm,
you talk about them becoming pro, it sounds really frustrating because Stephanie said that if you lose your first game, you're probably not going to make pro that year, which is that's a lot of
it,
pressure.
yeah, it's extremely stressful.
Yeah, and every game, and it
Mm,
makes sense though that you'd want someone that motivated, and that's
mm,
sort of the pressure you have anyways when you play these games. Like if you're going to play the biggest tournament, for
it,
the year, you're gonna
yeah,
have a lot of pressure. So you want someone who can deal with that
right.
pressure.
Yes. Another thing is that there are certain time of your life that you can challenge to be a pro. So,
Mm,
like for example, there is this protest once a year.
mm,
You miss it this year, and then you can think maybe next year and maybe next year. But the thing is that there are new players that comes up to that level.
right,
So the competition doesn't become easier, but you are getting older.
right.
So the pressure is like really big. Once you become pro, you don't care too much about losing at a tournament because there's another tournament and another tournament.
Hmm.
And even if you don't like win in this tournament, it doesn't affect your life very much.
I see.
But like
So would you
being,
say the most pressure that you've had was when you were trying in Go
yes,
was when you were
yes,
trying to? Oh wow.
definitely. So when I was at that like competition,
Mm.
like whenever I would face the board, like even before the first move, I would say, how am I going to win this game? Like I would be already afraid that I wouldn't win.
I understand. I have that. I mean, how do you? That's an how do you fight against that? Because I had to. Um. Hopefully this doesn't reveal too much about me because I know my
Yeah.
teacher might be watching. But
Oh.
I, there have been times,
Mhm.
I've been so worried about playing Go. Because if you play a bad game or you lose, you spent an hour or more on this and you feel bad, and you look
Yes.
over it with your friend and you feel bad,
Mm,
and then I talk with my teacher about it and I feel bad.
mm,
It's interesting, like how do you get over that?
mm.
Especially like for you, I guess, was it mostly just becoming a professional helped you get over that, or did you have something to
Yes.
deal with that before you had to worry about uh like how did you deal with those feelings?
Ah, I I don't remember. I think it was the time that healed.
Mm.
So like usually the time would pass and then I would feel better. But there were a lot of difficult times.
Mm.
Yes, like
How many times did you try for the Go to how many times did you take the test? Did, would you
I s-
say like
right. The first time I went to the final stage was when I was 13.
mhm. Was that
So
your first time you took the test or was that
no, it wasn't the first time, but that was the time that I became like close enough.
mm,
But I wasn't quite close, but I was close enough to be at the final level.
right.
But so 13, 14, 15, 16. So 4 times.
Wow.
So I became pro at 16.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was 15, I was considered the strongest candidate. And then
Oh.
at the time, I lost the last game that like decided who becomes pro by half point. And yeah, so that made me like 1 year older when I became pro. But 15 or 16, I think that was okay. I'm glad I didn't miss the opportunity again, because some people get like really big damage when they lose like such an important game by half point and they wouldn't recover.
Oh wow.
But in my case, luckily I recovered
Was it
that.
just like, so how did you just think about it and you're just like, okay, next year? Or did you just look at that game? Did you see that game in your head every day for like a week?
I did, of
Oh
course,
gosh.
because I was black and then I was winning by about like 3 or 4 points, and then like
Oh
the
wow.
game was getting into the end game, and then there were like, in my feeling, there were a million ways to win that game.
Oh man.
But then I got really nervous thinking that this is the end.
Oh wow. That's interesting.
Finally, I am becoming a pro, and then I started playing really bad moves, and then I lost by half point.
Interesting. I mean, I know there's so many stories about that. I know Stephanie said she did it a few times. There was the Chinese player that I interviewed at Go Congress, Wang Chen. He said he tried 6 times.
Yes.
And then who else? And then Mark Lee, I think, was also, I think, 6 times. And it's to be able to deal with that and just get beyond that must be really difficult. But I always also wonder about that, because even so much happens in a game that you see when you play, and when I'm an amateur, I can't help but look at them and just say, that mistake right there. I can't help but see this mistake for the rest of the game. It affects the rest of the game. Or,
Right,
oh,
yes.
okay, because of that group that lost in the end game, that's why I lost by, for me, it'd be like 7 points or something. But,
Yes.
and but even when I win, I still see that. How often are pros, after the game's over, are they happy with the way they played? If they win or they lose? You know, I always wonder that, because a pro's looking at this and it's like, even when they
Yes.
win, you're just like, oh, I won, but...
Yes, I would say like 99% is like that.
Really?
And then, yes, it's really funny. Like, after the game, you know how players review, like for a short time, and then both winner and loser are pointing their mistakes. Like, it doesn't matter if you won or lost, you would say, oh, I should have played here instead of this one, or
Right.
"Oh, that was my mistake." So like by just looking at the review, you can't tell who is the winner. Because
They
they
both
are
look
both
just
saying,
like-
yeah, they're both saying they made mistake.
Yeah. Oh,
But-
that's interesting. Go
But
ahead.
did you see the game, like Hajin and Sedol, just a couple days ago?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the one that they did the fast game, right?
Yes. After that game, in the interview, Koje said that I would give 100 points out of 100.
You
So-
won too, so that's the funny. So it's very rare for a game to be over and a pro to be like, I did it. I'm so happy with myself. They're
Yes.
still just like, oh.
Right, that's very rare.
Yeah. That's so. I mean, it's an interesting feeling, because I think the reason so many people enjoy Go is it's once you see how you're supposed to play or how you're supposed to do it, it doesn't seem that hard to get better, because it's like, oh, okay, that's the move.
Yes.
Oh, okay, then
Right.
I can do that. But then you play it and
Yes.
you might not see that again, or it's like so difficult, and
Right.
it's interesting. So when you see that, like if you
Mhm.
reviewed your games, or even if Sedol or Koje reviews the games, do they see it and they think, okay, next time I can play better? Or is it, oh my gosh, this is so, it's really difficult to get better? Like, how, like, what was the question?
Yes, I think I was frustrated. It was when I was a new pro,
Hmm.
about like 5 years into the professional world,
Right.
I was almost top, but not quite. I would say I was like around top 3 or 5 among like female players in Korea.
Oh
But
wow.
then I
I didn't realize you. I know so little.
yes, there was such a time.
Oh, come on. You're still
So
must be really
like
strong, right?
no. Anyway, but I was playing at the final round and I was like very high at the ranking and I would be qualified in the national team.
Mm.
But then I wasn't quite getting to the top like 1 or 2 level. So there was a like I think there was some like level gap between the top 1 or 2 players and the top like third, fourth and fifth.
Mm.
And then I was getting very frustrated rather than okay, next time I'm going to play better.
Mm.
Rather than feeling that, I would like feel like there is this war that I can't ever go through.
I know the It's probably different, but I know the feeling.
Right. Other people didn't agree with me. Whenever I say, I don't think I have enough talent to be the top pro. Like other people say, of course you do. You just have to put more efforts. You just need to study a little more. But then I wasn't sure how many years that would take and like there will be like younger players and then I wasn't too confident. And also I was too curious about like outside the world. So I decided to go to university and like leave the tournament world.
I see.
But yeah, rather than like I'll be better next time, I was more frustrated.
Yeah, I've always wondered that. I think it's interesting because, like, let's say me and let's say an AGA 5 or 6 dan or a 7 dan. It's
Yeah.
very easy for me to say I know where the difference is between me and him. Let's say a Mark Lee, who's
Yes,
really
yes.
strong. I can say, okay, I don't know enough Joseki. I don't do enough life and death. I don't play
Right.
enough. I don't have enough experience. For pros, what do you think? Were you ever able to say, okay, did you ever think about, okay, or did you get an answer to, like, what's the difference between me and Lee Sedol or this top player? Did you ever? I know you've probably thought about it. Did you ever get an answer, or was it still it's still a mystery for you?
What I believe is that the difference is the talent that you are born with.
I see. So it's not just like if you did a lot of life and death for a year straight.
Right, right.
Like, you wouldn't be able to say, okay, I can do this, and then instantly I'll be there.
Right. So not all people agree with me, but I'm one of the people who believe that talent matters once you're a pro.
I've heard that a lot. I think, yeah, they said, there's talent to become a pro, but then there's talent to even become a strong, like a 9 dan pro.
Right, right.
So,
but there are also people who say the top pros are at the top because they studied more than other pros.
Right.
That could be also true.
It
maybe there
has
is
to help.
both.
It has
yes,
to help.
yes, maybe there is both.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think definitely I've heard that even from a lot of 9 dan pros. There was one Chinese guy, I forgot his name, which is a bad thing because I had to drive him around once. But I asked him, and he was a 9 dan pro, and even he could see certain people that were they had that talent above him. And I asked him, when was the last time you played someone and you thought they are so talented? And his reaction, he was able to play Gosei Gen once, and he said when he played him, the moves he played, I think it's what you said with Lee Sedol, it's so creative that you can't even see it.
Right, right, yes.
And so when you see that, then you think, oh, this must be talent.
Yes, yes.
Oh, interesting. So that's pretty cool. It's so interesting that you see the wall and you see this talent where you're trying your hardest and you're going 60 miles an hour, and they're trying
right,
their hardest, and they're able to go 90 miles an hour, and
right, right,
it's
yes,
so it feels so different.
right.
But you were able to go and do university, learn English really, really well, and all these things.
Thank you.
I guess let's talk about you. There's so much really interesting stuff. So let's start with start about like why you started Go. Did your parents, or we'll use Baduk, but did your parents play Baduk at all, or was it because they sent you to a class, or was it like what was the reason you started?
Yes, very typical story in Korea. Both of my parents like to play Go,
Okay.
Baduk. Mm. And then when I was small, they would play like each other in
Oh,
our
really?
living room, like on Sundays. It
Oh,
was
wow.
their hobby. And then I would be just walking around them, and then I would ask my mom to like teach me how to play the game.
Oh, wow. So you were really curious about it to begin with.
Right, right, yes. Because I think I wanted to hang out with my parents.
I see. And how strong are they?
My mom is about 1Q, 1 dan on the
Hmm.
internet, and my dad is around 5, 6 dan.
So they were really strong.
Like Taijam.
Okay, so they were really strong. That's so you had good people to learn from.
Yes. My mom always gets 4 stones from
Mm.
my dad, and they have like 50-50 games.
Oh,
They
wow.
really enjoy it, yes.
That's good that they enjoy it. I talked to Eric, my
Yeah.
the last episode before this, and we talked about it, and he said every time he plays his dad, if he plays his dad, it's too serious. So it's good. It's good to see, that a husband and wife can play Go each other and still be okay, like not to get into an argument about it.
Yes, they are okay. Sometimes my dad would point out some mistakes that my mom made,
Mm.
and my mom would be like a little upset. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah. So they taught you, and then eventually they realized that you were really talented, and then they decided to send you to a Go school, a Paduk school, or
Yes,
how did it go from them teaching you to maybe
right, right.
you really learning?
So when I first showed my interest, they taught me themselves, but they also sent me one of those private Go schools almost right away,
Oh,
because
wow.
they thought that it was important to learn properly from the beginning.
That
So
yes, I agree. I I'm running into that problem because I didn't learn properly.
and then my teacher at that Go school thought I was talented.
That is always the thing. I think every person that ends up being pro, that there's a teacher that said, okay, you do have the talent and you can
Right, right.
really push for this.
Yes.
So when you heard that, were you really happy? Were you surprised, or did you think like do you remember when he told you about this?
He never told me about that.
Oh,
He told my parents.
I see.
So I didn't know what was going on.
Why am I going to go school, public school every day now?
I do remember I was enjoying playing a lot. And
Mm.
like more than playing, I would enjoy life and death problems. That was always my favorite part.
It, not for me. I've yet to I don't have that feeling yet.
Mm,
So
I,
do you remember when the first time you were able to maybe beat your mom or beat your dad in Paduk, or
right. I don't remember when, but I started with 9 handicap stones against my mom.
mm.
But I quickly became even with my mom. I, it probably took me about 1 or 2 years to be that level.
Mm.
And then when I became like even game against my mom, and when I started winning against my mom, I started playing with my dad
Oh,
with some
wow.
stones. And then I like reduced the handicaps like one by one, and then at some point I became even with my dad.
Wow.
And probably that was when I moved to like different Go school to get more serious training.
Oh, wow.
So when I was young, I would go to this private go school for kids in the neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
in the same town. But when I was 9, my parents decided that it was worth trying to become pro. So I went to this professional go school in Seoul.
Mm.
Like my hometown is not in Seoul, so I lived with my teacher
Oh, wow.
from 9 years old, and
Wow.
yes, and like studied go all day since then.
I see. That's interesting, yeah. I can't even imagine. But that's interesting. And also just how your parents, they must have been so happy and proud when you got a professional, became a professional too.
Yes.
So, do they still ask you for games?
Um, no, they
Do
don't.
they just play against each other? And then if there's an argument, they say, "Come over here. Who's right?"
Actually, my dad wouldn't call me, but sometimes my mom would.
She's like, hey, what do I play here? No, that's great though. And that I think let's talk a little bit about streaming and then you
Yeah.
putting it online. Now, uh, where did you first had the idea that you wanted to do this?
So the very first idea was at the 2014 Go Congress in New York City.
Mm.
Were you there?
Yeah.
There was a keynote speech by professor from New York University.
Right.
I think his name was Frank Lantz, Professor Lantz. And then he talked about how to promote Go in the US. But like during it was a long speech and very inspiring. But like one part of the speech mentioned that there was this chess streamer on Twitch that would like talk about what he's thinking while he's playing.
Right.
And then when I first heard that idea, I thought it was very interesting because when we play, we don't talk.
It's
we
all
think-
internal, yeah. And you
yes,
just,
and then we talk only after when the game's finished.
mm,
But I thought it could be interesting to hear what people are thinking about. So I had that idea, but at the time I didn't imagine doing it myself. I thought it would be nice if some other Go player tried it. And
I
then-
know the feeling, yeah.
So I thought about that briefly and then I forgot about it.
Mm.
So that was the summer 2014. And the same year, about October, I was talking with my friend, like on a chat. And he said that he was not a strong chess player, but he enjoyed watching this chess streamer
Right.
who like talks about what he's thinking. So I went to that channel and then like watched a few videos, and then I realized that there wasn't much there wasn't much into it. It was only the screen capture of the game and the voice.
Right.
And like at first I thought one had to be very entertaining to do such a thing,
Right.
because I thought if you want to be a streamer, you have to be funny and like brilliant and like
Yeah.
very well spoken. But this chess guy was not much like that. He wouldn't like make a lot of jokes.
Right.
He would just very calmly talk about what he's thinking, and that was all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it seemed like he was very popular.
Mm.
So I thought, oh, maybe I could try. But then when I thought about trying, I was a little worried about like talking about what I'm thinking,
Right.
because sometimes you're wrong. And then
Yes.
when you're pro, you don't want to be wrong. Like,
and you don't want to be wrong on the internet when everyone can see it over and over.
yes. Right. And then also when you're reviewing the game, you can be wrong.
Right.
And then you can say, oh, wait, maybe it wasn't that. Like, maybe you should play this one. And then you can correct yourself. But when you're playing, you can play like terrible moves and then you can't undo. So there was certain risk.
Yeah.
And I was a little shy. So because I was curious how that would work in Go,
Mm.
I made this anonymous account on Taijam and YouTube.
Yeah.
And then also I thought how I would be able to focus on the game. So I didn't want to start on 9 dan right off. So I made this 5 dan account.
I see. Yeah.
And then that's how my channel started.
I think a lot of people also. That's really cool though, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed when you were playing at 5 dan because. I talked to Andrew about this, Andrew Jackson, and he said because he would think, okay, what would he do if he was the other person, and then he could learn from your perspective what he was doing wrong. And it's I think your Taijin account is a lot stronger, and it's harder to be really precise about what you're thinking and what you're doing wrong. But it was so helpful for some other people to see.
Yes.
Sort of like a stronger. It's like. From your perspective, you can play a lot better and you can talk about it. It's like a teaching game without them knowing that they're getting taught.
Right, yes.
So I thought it's a really great idea, and it would help a lot of people to get stronger, and it's really cool. When it got really popular, I guess, and a lot of people knew about it, then how did you feel about it?
It was really funny. I wasn't planning to make it public in the beginning.
Yeah.
But then about maybe 20 to 30 games in, people started realizing. At first, when I was playing 5 dan, they thought I was not 5 dan, but they thought I was maybe about amateur 6 or 7 dan because I was winning against 5 dan. But when I went to, so I had 20 wins at 5 dan and then went straight to 7 dan.
Oh, wow.
And I was winning against 7 dan also. And that's when people started realizing that, oh, this is not an amateur player. And it was very quick from there to saying, this is probably Hajin.
Oh, they could tell it was you.
Yes. Yes. So
was it? Oh, so with your name, Haylee, is that because of Hajin Lee, the H-A and the Lee? Or
yeah, I mean, that's...
Or
so the Haylee name, the story of Haylee is this. I wanted to have a girl's name starting with H.
Okay.
My first pick was, I think, Harriet.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to have that name. But that name was taken on Taijam.
Okay.
So eventually I was going every girl's name starting with H. And there was nothing left.
Oh.
And then there was this name Haylee, but the proper spelling wouldn't work.
Right.
Usually it's written Hailey.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started some different variations. And then that particular spelling with Haylee worked.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, why not? But then, it was too similar to my name.
Oh, okay. I thought, so it's a coincidence. I thought that was like that.
Yeah, that also helped people to recognize that it was me. Actually, yes?
So when they recognized with you, did you just someday, one guy tapped on your shoulder like, is this you? Did they call you or did just...
So there were different occasions. So my friends who knew my voice, obviously, they knew even before I became 7 dan. When they heard my voice, they recognized. So they would send me an email saying, Hajin, is that you? And I couldn't lie, so I would say, yes, that's me. And then some other occasions when I was on a business trip to other Go tournaments, working for the IGF, I would go to business trips.
Right.
So one such a trip was in London. There was London Open Go tournament. And then I was doing some game reviews for the people.
And they're like, wait.
Yes.
I know this voice.
Recognized my voice. So they said, you're Haylee, right? So I said, yeah, that's me. And then some other people would hear the rumor that it's me
Mm.
and then send me a Facebook message.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then asking if that's me. And some Facebook messages I didn't answer.
Right. Keep it a mystery, and then now everybody knows.
So by the time I told everyone that I was pro and then my name was Hajin, like by that time I think everyone already knew.
Oh, okay. But it was still a fun time for everyone to figure like that must be so surprising. They're like, you sound so familiar.
Yes. It was really funny. Yes.
And then now you're doing this new thing. You're writing a book. What? I know it's still in progress, but what can you tell me about it in terms of what you're doing?
Right. So this book, um, it wasn't written to be a book from the beginning. So I had a blog from like 2008 and until about 2013. And then when I closed my blog, so after 2013, I stopped writing on my blog because at that point I was doing more on Facebook.
Oh, I see.
And then I also didn't have much time to write.
I see.
So I closed my blog, so it doesn't exist anymore. But when I closed my blog, I copied all my blog entries just in case I want to read them again. And it was, I think, about last year that I had this idea of making them into a book. Because my blog entries had many stories about like how I studied, how I started playing Go, and how I felt after my match when I won and when I lost, and my travel logs from the US Go Congress, European Congress, and like working with the KBA. So there were some interesting stories.
Yeah.
So I had this idea, and then I was talking about it with Andrew Jackson, and he had some experience with publishing books.
I see.
So he said that he would like to help me through publishing this blog book, and then we are working on it. It should be ready very soon.
Cool. We're all very excited for it. Cool. I'm sort of out of topics. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Probably not for today.
Okay.
We could have another talk maybe next time.
Yeah, definitely. That would be the greatest thing. Especially let's see, maybe after the March matches happen, we should definitely try and meet up again and just talk about it.
Sure.
In that case, I guess we're done. I want to so I really want to thank you again for being able to do this. It's really fun. I learned a lot, and it's always fun to talk with people. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, how do I say it without embarrassing it? 고맙습니다.
Yes,
Yeah,
고맙습니다.
고맙습니다. But thank you very much, and thanks. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then everyone who's watching, thanks for watching this. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.